Well, since I'm reviewing Blank Banshee Zero, I decided I'll use the most aesthetic map in Tower Unite, which is this one. Namaste, bitches, it is I, the Log Muffin, and this is the first episode of a series I'm doing called Perfect Scores, where I tell you about albums that I give 10 out of 10s to, and why I think they're so awesome. I'll be starting from most controversial albums, and moving to least controversial ones. Blank Banshee Zero. This is definitely the most controversial pick in my 10 out of 10 category. The Rate Your Music rating of this album is only 3.26, the lowest of any of my 5-star albums. So, I'm doing this one first. Blank Banshee is a Canadian vaporwave artist who, if you're familiar with the vaporwave scene, needs no introduction, and this is his debut album. But, before I go down the track list, I want to go through some history. In 2009, Blank Banshee, aka Patrick Driscoll, was part of the post-punk group Shinjuku Mad with his friend Cormorant, aka Curtis Ferguson. The band broke up in 2010, but their work still lives on in this album, as Shinjuku Mad's old songs are reworked and sampled onto this album with songs such as Dreamcast and Photosynthesis. Also, at the time that this album was released in 2012, Vaporwave was going through a creative slump, sometimes called the Vaporwave is Dead period. There were lots of artists like Internet Club that were making Vaporwave just to take the piss out of it. The release of this album came at the tail end of that slump, and marked a shift in the genre of Vaporwave as a whole.
Eventually, most releases were horribly put together messes just to undermine the true essence of what this genre was about.
The phrase "Vaporwave is dead" seemed to carry itself around on internet forums and continued onwards to be the perceived reality of what was to come for the genre.
With that out of the way, let's go down the track list. Track 1 is B Startup, and this is one of my favorite album openers of all time. It's just such a great summation of this album and Blank Banshee as a whole. The instantly recognizable Windows 95 and Mac startup samples combine into a piece of nostalgia that any Vaporwave listener can appreciate and enjoy. But at the same time, mixing it with the trap beat fits so perfectly and tells you all you need to know about Blank Banshee's sound. Wave Step is another banger, with the Koji Kondo sample combined with more sick beats as well as vocals from Cormorant. It feels like a fever dream. This fever dream mood is reinforced with lyrics like, "Lay me down in a bed of glass, cut myself as I turn." The track Bath Salts I didn't really enjoy in first listen, but it has grown on me. It's sort of EDM-ish with the thumping dance kick drums and grimy synths and bass. There's even some weird robotic-sounding vocal samples that come into the latter half of the track that I also really enjoy. Ammonia Clouds, also really fucking good, with the prominent and dreamy 808 State sample, trap beat, and killer bass lines. You can't not vibe to it. Venus Death Trap, this song pairs well with Ammonia Clouds perfectly, even though they don't sound remotely similar. The choppy, unintelligible, vaguely unsettling vocal samples, as well as another sick bass line, combine just so perfectly. Blank Banshee knows how to write a fucking bass line I can get down to, I will say that. Hyper Object, more sick bass lines and bouncy beats. Cormorant also delivers vocals on this track, and they are so good. There's a shitload of filters that he puts over the vocal samples where it sounds like it's like fading in and out. It kind of puts it into Uncanny Valley territory. Haha, get it? The grimy, pitch-shifted vocal samples at the end of the track also add to that, which weirdly remind me of the Daft Punk track Short Circuit. Photosynthesis, a calmer point in the record, a place to cool down after the high-energy pieces that came before it. All the pieces of this track, the vocal samples, the dreamy synths, the bouncy beat and bass, all coalesce into a truly beautiful piece of music. Deep Space is the only track for me that doesn't really land. It's repetitive and doesn't really have a groove. That's all I'll really say about it. The song Dreamcast is one of the best tracks on the record. It's a rework of the Shinjuku Mad song Resistor. The verse is repeated like it was in the original, but when the chorus comes in, it just explodes into skittering hi-hats, warp synths, and distortion. It's so amazing, though it does kind of get repetitive towards the tail end of the track. Cyber Zodiac, another track that's more chill. There's the synth lead as well as what I think are pitch-shifted vocal samples, but I'm not sure. I like it, and I also like how the track gradually slows down until the beat disappears and we're left with an ambient outro. That leads into the next track, Teen Pregnancy, and this is one of the best vaporwave songs ever written. This is also Blank Banshee's most famous track by far. First of the whole Simpson wave trend a while back, which is actually the reason I know about Blank Banshee, and with a TikTok trend that was popular last year. And god, this track is fucking fantastic. The level of sample chopping and layering going on here is insane. We got the Boards of Canada sample, which sounds so clean, that lingers in the background, as well as with fast as fuck hi-hats, as well as some synth bloops, I guess, which already make for an interesting sound, but then he throws in more samples by adding as a sample of Grandmaster Flash, as well as a sample of the show Degrassi Junior High. All of these elements come together for a masterful vaporwave track that shows how complex samples in vaporwave can be. Purity Boys, while it isn't as good as the other tracks, I still think it does some interesting stuff. It combines the synths from a Purity Ring track as well as the vocals from a Beach Boys track, hence the track name, repackaged with Blank Banshee's amazing beats. Visualization, this track delves a little bit into spoken word with robotic voices that instruct the listener on what to do, all with relaxing synths in the background. I actually like what Blank Banshee is going for in this track. It really adds to the whole, digital theme of this album. The track World Vision, with its pitch-shifted Bjork samples, I feel is one of the weaker tracks on here. It's okay, I guess, but I do like how towards the end of the track, the sample and hi-hats disappear, and all we hear is the beat. Then, the closing track, Be Shut Down Depression, with solemn synth samples, really one of the only tracks on here without any sort of a beat, but I think that fits the idea of the track. While not as strong as an opening as B Startup, I do feel it does kind of tie up the record very nicely, and fits into the theme that Blank Banshee was going for. So, overall, I fucking love this record, and I think that this is not only the best vaporwave record ever released, but also one of the best electronic albums ever released. If this album came out today, I'd probably give this record a 9, bordering on a 10. But just because of how innovative and groundbreaking that this record was for the genre, I just have to give it a 10. So, final score, I give this album 5 Dreamcasts out of 5. So yeah, that's the video. Tell me what you thought of it. If you have any constructive criticism, leave it in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that bullshit. I'm the Logamuffin, and as always, I'll see you up ahead. With songs such as Dreamcast and Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. I cannot say that fucking word.